The night after a funeral tastes like metal in the mouth, quiet, heavy, and humming with things unsaid. Calcutta, 1952. A nameless parcel arrives at a young disciple's door. Inside, a dark leather notebook bound with a single red ribbon. No title, no signature. Only one line inked in Sanskrit along the first page. What sleeps within you can wake the cosmos. For years, the book would be hidden beneath floorboards and temple dust, feared as if it were a lit fuse. Some whispered it wasn't a manual of meditation at all, but a set of keys for the rooms underneath the mind, those corridors where habits are written, reality is edited, and matter listens to silence. Others insisted it was myth. Most simply forgot it existed, yet the line on the first page would not leave me. It followed like a bell you cannot unhear. I was not ready the first time I opened it. My thoughts were sharp and busy, churning like a market at noon. I wanted instructions, techniques, sequences, a ladder to climb. Instead, I found margins full of small remarks. The mind is an instrument, not the musician. Wisdom arrives where argument ends. Do not fight the storm. Become the shore. Simple lines that felt less like words and more like an invitation to stop pushing. I remembered the garden of my teacher, Sri Yukteswar. He once sat me before a lotus whose petals refused the day. We spoke not a word. My mind barked, listed errands, replayed wounds, planned futures that evaporated as quickly as they formed. When the hour closed, he said only, "The soul does not shout. It waits." Something in me loosened, a knot admitting it had been tied on the wrong rope. The forbidden manuscript did not teach domination, but devotion, to attend to the quiet, until the quiet answers. It suggested that the subconscious is not a vault to break, but a child behind a door, listening for the sound of your patience. That line in Sanskrit, "Wake the cosmos," sounded less like magic and more like recognition. When presence returns, the universe remembers its part. Tonight, the ribbon is untied again. If you've come seeking spectacle, you may be disappointed. This is a book of thresholds. But if you're willing to trade noise for listening and insistence for intimacy, then step closer. What if mastering the subconscious begins not with conquering thought, but with meeting it, tenderly, exactly as it is? When the mind screams, the soul withdraws. That is the paradox Yogananda carried like a seed through his teachings. The forbidden manuscript begins here with a simple warning. Do not mistake the chatter of thought for the voice of your essence. I recall a scene etched into memory. Calcutta again, late afternoon. The temples glowed as if dipped in molten gold, the air vibrating with incense and the cries of street vendors. My thoughts raced, lists unfinished, questions without a home. Why do I suffer if I pray? Why does the mind feel like an enemy when all I crave is peace? My master, Sri Yukteswar, beckoned me into the garden. He pointed not to words, but to a lotus folded tight upon still water. We sat together in silence. An hour passed. My mind roared like a crowded bazaar, while the flower remained unmoved, waiting for night to give it rest. At last he whispered, "That noise is not you. It is only the surface. The soul does not argue. The soul does not compete with chaos. It retreats to remain uncorrupted." That day became a compass. I realized that the restless mind, left untrained, becomes a tyrant. Yet when regarded as a tool rather than an identity, it softens. Wisdom, I discovered, is born not from constant analysis, but from the quiet that appears when attachment to thought dissolves. Modern science confirms this truth. Neuroscientists now observe how meditation rewires neural circuits, dampening the brain's fear centers while strengthening pathways of compassion and clarity. The Greeks hinted at it long before. Plato wrote of a Music of the soul, only heard when reason pauses. Across centuries and cultures, the lesson is echoed. Clarity grows where noise ends. Yogananda's words in the manuscript echoed this universal law. Do not fight your mind. Love it as you would a frightened child. Only then will it rest. I have witnessed people with chronic pain find relief after 15 minutes of daily stillness. I have seen anxious obsessions ease the moment the sufferer stopped resisting them and instead welcomed them into awareness. Like a child finally acknowledged, the mind softens when seen. And so the first secret unfolds. Mastery of the subconscious is not a conquest, it is a remembering. The mind shouts, but the soul listens. If you truly wish to enter the hidden chambers of your being, begin here, in the stillness where thought is no longer dictator but servant. Tell me then, if the soul is waiting, will you dare to sit long enough to hear it? The manuscript calls the subconscious the hidden teacher. It is not a prison to escape, but a mirror showing us what has remained unhealed. One evening, walking beneath a moonless sky in Serampore, I felt a movement inside me that had no name. It was not thought. It was not emotion. It was as if a river stirred beneath the surface of my chest. I sat beneath an ancient Bodhi tree, closed my eyes, and simply breathed. What emerged astonished me. Fragments of childhood I had forgotten. Voices of my parents echoing in phrases long buried, fears that were not mine but had been passed to me as inheritance. That river had always been there, the subconscious, flowing silently beneath the daylight mind. In the West, psychology once described it as a locked black box. Freud saw it as a repository of repressed desires, while Jung expanded it into the collective unconscious, a vast archive of human archetypes. But in the East, sages whispered of it differently, not as enemy, but as a faithful servant repeating the instructions it was once given. If those instructions were love, it would echo love. If they were fear, it would echo fear without malice, only loyalty. Think of the subconscious as a gardener. It plants every word spoken to you in childhood, every image that startled you, every moment you were praised or ignored. It waters these seeds with repetition. But no one taught us to plant consciously, and so the garden grows wild. We suffer not by chance but by unconscious design. Repeated disappointments, uncanny patterns in relationships, self-sabotage. These are not accidents. They are the crops of seeds we forgot we planted. The subconscious does not respond to logic. It does not care for the declarations of the rational mind. It listens only to the rhythm of repeated emotion. You may meditate for an hour proclaiming, "I am peace," but if you spend the rest of your day steeped in resentment and complaint, what does the subconscious record? Not the phrase, but the frequency. It is fluent not in language, but in vibration. Modern science offers echoes of this truth. Research into epigenetics reveals that trauma can imprint not only on the psyche, but on genetic expression, silently guiding health and behavior across generations. Likewise, the subconscious inscribes impressions, samskaras, that persist until met with new, coherent feeling. The manuscript whispers, "Do not shout at your subconscious. Sing to it with consistency. Teach it not with demands, but with tenderness." So, if the subconscious is an eternal child within, waiting for your attention, the question is not whether it obeys, but what lullaby you are singing to it, day after day. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the womb from which all transformation is born. I was 23 when this truth crashed into me like a tide. Outwardly, I was a teacher, leading students through postures and mantras. Inwardly, I was a battlefield of restless thoughts, rehearsing yesterday's failures and tomorrow's anxieties. Meditation was my profession, yet peace remained a stranger. One dawn in Rishikesh, I walked to the banks of the Ganges. The river shimmered beneath a pale sky, its current steady, unhurried. I sat with no mantra, no technique, no goal. For the first time, I stopped trying. And then it happened. A few seconds that felt eternal. The machinery of thought fell silent. What remained was awareness without edges, a presence more solid than stone, yet lighter than breath. I realized then, silence is not emptiness. Silence is presence in its purest form. From that morning forward, subtle changes unfolded. Conversations lost their grip on me. Situations that once triggered anxiety dissolved into stillness. People I had struggled to reach suddenly leaned in, sensing a calm I could not feign. My subconscious was being rewritten, not through willpower or endless affirmations, but through contact with that original quiet. The manuscript insisted, destiny is not carved in stone. It is painted on the canvas of the subconscious, and silence, true silence, is the solvent that washes away the old strokes. When the nervous system enters deep stillness, scientists observe the body's repair mechanisms ignite. Traumas soften without words. Addictions fall away not by struggle, but by disinterest. The future bends, because the old patterns fueling it have dissolved. Eastern mystics knew this centuries ago. Zen masters described Satori, the flash of awakening that arrives only when the seeker stops seeking. In that release, the subconscious is bathed in coherence, and what was once compulsion becomes choice. Silence is a teacher without voice. It does not argue, does not persuade. It simply reveals what remains when the noise is gone. And in that revelation, the subconscious learns a new language: serenity. So ask yourself, what would happen if you let go of fighting your mind for just one breath and allowed silence to speak instead? The forbidden manuscript speaks of a paradox. The harder you push into the subconscious, the faster it closes. Enter without forcing, it says, a phrase that confounded me when I first read it. Had I not spent years striving, sweating in ashrams, repeating mantras until my throat ached, believing intensity was the key? Yet my teacher Sri Yukteswar looked at me with calm eyes and said, "Your obstacle is not lack of practice, it is excess of will." That single sentence disarmed me. I thought awakening was conquest, but he showed me it was surrender. He led me to the riverbank of the Ganges, where the current glided in silence. "Watch," he instructed, "but do not analyze." For nearly an hour, I simply observed the water twist and glimmer. Slowly, my breath softened, my body loosened. And then, like mist rising, I felt memories emerge. Painful ones, tender ones, fragments of a younger self I had buried. Yet they surfaced without torment. Nothing needed fixing. Everything simply wanted to be seen. The manuscript names 3 pillars for this gentle entrance: affectionate stillness. Not rigid immobility, but the willingness to sit with yourself without rushing to correct or condemn. Like holding a crying child, you do not silence it. You embrace it. Breath as bridge. Each inhale is a key, each exhale a surrender. Modern science shows that slow rhythmic breathing shifts the nervous system into healing mode, allowing hidden layers of the mind to open, sacred listening, to hear not the thoughts themselves, but the sensations beneath them, the tremor in the chest, the image that flickers unbidden, the emotion waiting patiently to be acknowledged. I have seen students spend years in therapy find release in minutes with this practice, not because words are unimportant, but because the subconscious speaks in images and feelings, not arguments. Trauma softens when witnessed without judgment. Fear dissolves when met with patient breath. The technique is deceptively simple. Many dismiss it, yearning for complex rituals or secret mantras. But the ancient sages knew what is most powerful often hides in plain sight. To enter the subconscious is not to break in, but to sit so gently at its door that it opens itself. So I ask you, what if the wall blocking your path is not meant to be smashed, but to be listened to? The manuscript turns then to two ancient instruments, mantra and breath. Together, it says, they are the tuning fork of the soul. To the untrained ear, they may sound like simple practices, yet hidden within them lies the oldest science of reprogramming the subconscious. A mantra is not merely a word. It is a vibration encoded with memory, a sound shape that resonates far deeper than the intellect. As a child in the ashram, I heard the elders repeat AUM until it seemed the very walls vibrated. At first it felt meaningless, a syllable stretched on the tongue. But with time, I felt its architecture. Awakening the body, you stirring the heart, am dissolving into the silence of the soul. It was less about reciting and more about allowing the sound to sculpt my inner state. Modern physics teaches us that resonance changes matter. A frequency can shatter glass, align particles, even stabilize chaos. The sages knew this long before. They used mantra not as magic spell, but as acoustic medicine. When repeated with devotion, a mantra clears the turbulence of thought until the subconscious reflects truth like still water. Breath is the second key, and perhaps the most overlooked. Unlike heartbeat or digestion, breath belongs both to the conscious and unconscious realms. It is the single bridge we can cross in either direction. When shallow, the mind scatters. When deep and slow, the nervous system repairs itself, and the subconscious door loosens on its hinges. Yogis called this prana, life energy woven into every inhale and exhale. Together, mantra and breath form a dialogue. One carries vibration, the other carries life force. I remember evenings when, after chanting AUM in rhythm with my breath, it was no longer I who repeated the syllable. The syllable seemed to breathe me. In those moments, the subconscious did not resist. It surrendered, as if recognizing an ancient lullaby. The manuscript warns, do not mistake mantra for mechanical repetition, nor breath for mere physiology. They are invitations, not commands. With patience, sound becomes light, breath becomes current, and the subconscious, long burdened by noise, finds itself humming in harmony. So I leave you with a question. If every breath is a doorway and every word a seed, what melodies are you planting in the garden of your soul? The forbidden manuscript speaks of a diary that none of us remember writing, the invisible journal of the soul. Every thought, every unspoken fear, every repressed tear leaves its mark there. We may not see the pages, but we live by them. I once dreamt I was walking through a dark temple. The walls glowed faintly, inscribed not with scripture, but with words I had never spoken aloud. Silent judgments, hidden doubts, buried anger, they shimmered like ghosts etched in light. I awoke shaken, realizing that silence does not erase, it records. The subconscious keeps minutes of every moment we deny. The manuscript explains, your soul is not blank. It is layered with samskaras, subtle impressions. Modern psychology calls them imprints. Biology calls them epigenetic memories. Whether you bury a feeling or repeat a thought, it does not vanish. It settles into the field of your being, shaping choices without your consent. That is why so many repeat the same heartbreaks, attract the same conflicts, live the same patterns without knowing why. They are not cursed. They are simply rereading the same invisible page. Imagine your energy field as a clear lake. A single stone, an occasional negative thought, creates ripples that fade. But cast stones every day, every hour, and the lake grows cloudy. It cannot reflect the sky above. This is what happens when the invisible journal is filled with unattended words and wounds. How, then, can we begin to read what has never been written in ink? The practice is not intellectual, but contemplative. Sit in stillness, breathe deeply. Call to mind a recurring struggle in your life. Do not analyze it, observe. Let an image arise, a sensation, a memory. Ask softly, where does this come from? What is it repeating? Then listen, not with ears, but with the quiet of the heart. Recognition is the first alchemy. To see what you once ignored is already to loosen its grip. I have witnessed people dissolve hatred in tears the moment they allowed themselves to feel it fully. I have seen memories of abandonment heal in a single exhale of forgiveness. The subconscious does not demand punishment. It longs for presence. And so the manuscript reminds us, every hidden page waits for your gaze, not to condemn you, but to be rewritten in light. So I ask you, if your soul has been keeping an invisible journal all along, are you ready to open it? One stormy night in Calcutta, I understood why some prayers bloom into miracles while others vanish like smoke. The manuscript calls it the triangle of reality: mind, emotion, and vibration. Three forces that, when aligned, shape the world as faithfully as sunlight shapes a flower. The mind is the architect. Every thought sketches a blueprint on the unseen canvas of existence. Yet a drawing alone cannot build a temple. Too often, seekers believe thought is enough, that repeating affirmations or imagining success will summon it. But a plan without fire remains only ink. The emotion is the flame. Science today confirms what sages proclaimed. The heart radiates an electromagnetic field thousands of times stronger than the brain. The soul does not move by logic. It moves by feeling. You may declare, I am love, but if fear trembles in your chest, the universe answers the fear, not the words. Emotion is not weakness. It is the sacred current that animates intention. And then there is vibration, the most elusive, the signature of the soul. Vibration is what you emanate without trying, the frequency carved by years of habits, wounds, and devotion. It is why two people may speak the same affirmation, even feel it briefly, yet one transforms and the other remains unchanged. The difference is the resonance of their being. The field of reality responds not to slogans, but to coherence. I once saw this truth made flesh. A man prayed loudly for abundance, reciting verses with confidence, but his vibration quivered with resentment and lack. Nothing changed. Later, an old woman whispered barely audible words of gratitude, her heart glowing with sincerity. Her life, quietly, began to overflow with grace. The manuscript's teaching is simple yet demanding. Align the 3 points. Think with clarity, feel with authenticity, vibrate with presence. When mind, emotion, and vibration sing in unison, reality cannot resist. It reflects back like a mirror held to the sun. Practice is the bridge. Each morning choose one thought worth living. Breathe until you summon the emotion that matches it. Then sit in silence, letting that state soak into your vibration like dye into cloth. 21 days, the manuscript promises, and the world will echo the music you sustain. So I leave you this question. If your life is a mirror, what triangle are you drawing upon it today? Fractured or aligned as one radiant beam, there comes a threshold beyond silence, beyond mantra, beyond breath, the gateway of the third eye. The manuscript describes it not as a myth, but as a faculty dormant in every human being. Ancient texts called it ajna, the command center. Anatomists map it to the pineal gland, a tiny crystal-bearing structure capable of sensing subtle electromagnetic fields. Mystics call it the eye of the soul. I remember my own pilgrimage into the Himalayas, 3 weeks of solitude with nothing but a blanket, a bowl, and resolve. The first days were full of noise, hunger, wandering thoughts, restless limbs. But by the 5th day, everything quieted. Then it began. A gentle pressure between my eyebrows, neither pain nor discomfort, but like a door slowly unlocking. A warmth grew, then light, as if a small sun had risen inside my skull. And suddenly, vision turned inward. I no longer saw with eyes. I perceived patterns, symbols, fragments of truths that did not belong to ordinary senses. The manuscript insists. The third eye is not fortune-telling. It is perception freed from the tyranny of the physical. Through it, the subconscious becomes visible. Patterns long hidden rise to the surface. Traumas dissolve when seen with this lucid gaze. I have guided students through this practice. Some carried wounds of decades, yet when they turned awareness through the third eye, tears streamed down silently, and the knots unfastened without struggle. Science itself offers whispers of validation. Studies on meditation reveal the pineal gland releases biochemicals like melatonin, and, some suggest, visionary compounds that shift consciousness. Ancient Egyptians carved the Eye of Horus as a mirror of this gland, as if civilizations worlds apart had stumbled on the same secret organ of spirit. The practice is delicate. Sit with your spine tall, eyes closed. Focus gently on the space between your brows. Imagine a violet or golden pulse there, soft and steady. Inhale to 4, hold to 4, exhale to 4. With each cycle, whisper Om inwardly, not with lips, but as vibration through your skull. Do not demand visions, simply invite them. Sometimes you will see images, sometimes only feel calm. Both are signs the portal stirs. The manuscript closes this chapter with a revelation. When the third eye awakens, you remember not only what you have been, but what humanity is becoming. For this eye belongs not just to mystics. It is the next step of our collective evolution. So I ask you, if another vision of reality waits within your forehead like a hidden sun, will you dare to open it? At last the manuscript turns to the most intimate of all thresholds, sleep. It calls the hours of night the sacred workshop of the subconscious. Every evening, as the body surrenders and the conscious mind drifts, a gate opens. Few recognize its power. Most collapse into bed carrying the noise of the day, arguments replayed, worries rehearsed, lists unfinished. And so, night after night, they plant seeds of fear and scarcity into the most fertile soil they possess. But the sages knew, what you whisper to yourself before sleep becomes the blueprint your subconscious builds upon. Neuroscience now agrees. Just before entering deep rest, the brain passes through alpha and theta waves, the very same frequencies activated in meditation and hypnosis. In that fragile window, the subconscious is wide awake. It does not judge, it only records. I once met an elder in Almora who radiated serenity even in his dreams. When I asked his secret, he smiled and said, "I sleep as though entering a temple." His ritual was simple. Sit in silence for 5 minutes, breathe slowly, let the dust of the day settle. Then, with heart softened in gratitude, plant a single phrase, never many, always one, like a seed. I am guided by peace. My body heals as I rest. He would drift into sleep with those words nestled in his chest, and by dawn they had become part of him. The manuscript urges us to reclaim this practice. It does not ask for hours of discipline, only intention, a hand resting over the heart, a whispered mantra carried into slumber. Even science confirms that gratitude before bed rewires the nervous system toward resilience. Dreams, too, begin to change. They no longer recycle fear. They become messages, rehearsals of healing, silent rehearsals of the life you are calling forth. I have watched students transform through this nightly ritual. A woman burdened by decades of anxiety learned to fall asleep, repeating, "I am safe." Within weeks, her mornings felt lighter, her body less tense. A man struggling with grief whispered, "Love still flows through me." Soon he began to dream of reunion, and his waking heart mended without forcing. The final teaching is this: awakening is not a thunderclap. It is a rhythm. Each breath, each thought, each night of sleep is a page, and when written with intention, those pages weave a new destiny. So tonight, when you close your eyes, remember, you are not merely sleeping. You are sowing. The question is, what seed will you entrust to the darkness so that the morning may return it as light?